The Legend of Zelda has killed off dozens of characters across 30 years of games, but the ones that actually stay with you aren't the dramatic boss battles or the glowing sacrifices. They're the quiet ones, the ones you almost miss. Today we're ranking the most tragic deaths in Zelda history, from noble to soul-crushing, starting with the ones who at least got a cape. The champions, Daruk, Mipha, Urbosa, and Revali are the gold standard of Zelda deaths. Titles, speeches, entire divine beasts named after them. And 100 years before Breath of the Wild even starts, Calamity Ganon kills every single one of them. Here's the thing though, they don't just die, their consciousness gets locked inside corrupted divine beasts for an entire century. Aware, trapped, watching Hyrule collapse from inside a haunted machine with zero ability to do anything about it. That's not a heroic death, that's a prison sentence with a heroic aesthetic. Mipha makes it personal. She and Link had a genuine romantic bond, which means every journal entry she left behind hits completely differently once you know she's been waiting inside Vah Ruta this whole time. The reason the champions rank lowest isn't because their deaths don't matter. It's because they happened before the game started, filtered through memories and other people's grief. You mourn them at a safe distance. The deaths ahead don't give you that distance. Darmani is up next, and his death is a lot more intimate than you'd expect. Darmani. Darmani is the most celebrated warrior the Gorons of Termina have ever produced, and he dies exhausted, sick, and completely alone on a frozen mountainside, unable to save the people who needed him most. That's the tragedy here. Not a villain's blade, not a grand sacrifice, just a body that finally gave out after pushing too hard for too long. His ghost lingers at the Goron graveyard above the mountain village, watching his people suffer below, powerless to intervene. He's present for his own failure, every single day. That's not a metaphor. He is literally standing there, watching it happen, and he cannot stop it. But here's where Darmani becomes something else entirely. When Link finds him, he doesn't beg to be saved or rage against the situation. He asks quietly for someone to finish what he started. Then he willingly dissolves himself so his mission can continue through another body. The Goron mask is not a resurrection. It's Darmani choosing to become a tool of purpose rather than clinging to an existence that no longer serves anyone. That's a different category of tragedy from the champion's grand theatrical sacrifice. Darmani's death is private, unwitnessed, completely self-directed. Nobody's writing songs about it. He just loved his people enough to stop existing for them. And if you think that's quietly devastating, the next one doesn't even have a name. The Deku Butler's son. Here's the thing about the Deku mask. You wear it for half the game. You transform into a little wooden kid, bounce around on flower pads, shoot bubbles at enemies, and never once stop to think about where it came from. You should have stopped to think about where it came from. Before Majora's Mask even begins, Skull Kid attacks a young Deku child in the Lost Woods and leaves him dead. No ceremony, no witness, nobody to mourn him. Just a small body, abandoned between the trees. Link finds it early on, and the game quietly binds that dead boy's spirit to a mask. A mask Link then puts on his face and uses as a tool for the entire adventure. That's already uncomfortable, but here's where it gets genuinely devastating. There's a minor NPC called the Deku Butler. You almost certainly ran past him. At the very end of the game, after everything is resolved, he stops beside a shriveled tree in the Lost Woods that looks exactly like Link's Deku form, and he weeps. He was looking for his son the entire time. The game never told you. It just quietly placed his grief in the background and trusted you to either notice or not. Most players don't, and the ones who do tend to sit with it a lot longer than they expected. Just a father crying beside something that used to be his child while you move on to the next screen. Mikau didn't get much more warning than this, but at least he got to say goodbye. Mikau, Darmani, chose to dissolve. He looked Link in the eye, handed over everything, and let go on his own terms. Mikau never got that. Mikau was the Zora's de facto protector, the guitarist of the Indigo Goes, and the person standing between Lulu and the Gerudo pirates who stole her eggs. He tried to get them back. They left him for dead in the water. By the time Link finds him, he's barely crawling to shore, using the last of anything he has left just to reach a complete stranger. And here's the thing, he doesn't ask Link to save him. It's too late for that. What he does is hand over everything he is, his name, his face, his body, his unfinished mission, his relationships. He trusts a stranger to carry all of it forward because there's nobody else. The Zora Mask transformation sequence makes sure you feel that. It's slow, it's mournful, and the game plays it like a funeral because that's exactly what it is. Something irreversible just happened, and the design is telling you not to look away. The cruelest part is that Lulu never gets a real goodbye. His bandmates never get one either. The people who loved him only get closure because Link walks around in his face and finishes what he started. His story gets an ending. He just doesn't get to be in it. Darmani's death was willing. Mikau's was stolen. That difference matters more than it should. But if you want to talk about a death that reframes an entire villain, Ganondorf's ending in Wind Waker does something the series almost never attempts. Ganondorf. Nobody puts Ganondorf on a list of tragic deaths. That's the whole point. Wind Waker does something genuinely uncomfortable. It takes the original Ganondorf, the one from Ocarina of Time, ancient and exiled, and drops him into a drowned world that used to be the kingdom he spent his entire existence trying to conquer. The gods flooded Hyrule to contain him. The thing he wanted most is sitting at the bottom of an ocean, and he's still there, trapped inside the ruins of his own ambition, waiting. Here's the thing. His final moments contain no rage, no last-ditch attempt, no desperate speech about power or destiny. He just looks at the wind, at the light breaking through the water above him, and he says, plainly, that Link and Zelda are proof of a cycle he was never going to unmake. He already knows it's over. He probably knew for a long time. The King of Hyrule turns him to stone with the Triforce, and the image you're left with is a villain standing still in the ruins of a flooded castle, permanently frozen mid-acknowledgement. He outlived his own cause. He survived long enough to watch the thing he wanted become something that literally did not exist anymore. This is the only Ganondorf death in the entire series that doesn't feel earned. It feels like loss, not his loss. Yours somehow, which is deeply inconvenient. If that left you unsettled, the Flute Boy from A Link to the Past is about to make it worse. Flute Boy, every death on this list so far has made sense inside some kind of framework. The champions died protecting their people. Darmani died from exhaustion serving his tribe. Even the Deku Butler's son, as senseless as that felt, had a cause, a moment, a villain you could point at. There was a why. The Flute Boy doesn't get a why. In A Link to the Past, the Flute Boy spends years searching for his father in the Dark World, slowly, inevitably, transforming into a creature he never chose to become. He doesn't die in a battle. He doesn't sacrifice himself for anyone. He just waits in Kakariko Village in the Light World, already gone in every way that matters, playing a song he learned before everything went wrong. The game asks you to play that song for him one last time, and then he vanishes. Here's where it gets genuinely disturbing. He knows exactly what happened to him. He remembers who he was. The transformation wasn't a surprise. It was a slow erosion. The Dark World reshaping him into something that reflected his inner nature while he was just trying to find his dad. That's the entire explanation. No curse he could fight. No villain he could confront. Just the world grinding him down until there was nothing left to save. The game presents it with almost no ceremony, which is exactly the point. Fi, by contrast, at least gets a goodbye, which almost makes her ending harder in a completely different way. Fi doesn't die. That's what makes it so hard to watch. She fades. Slowly, over the course of the entire game, the Master Sword's spirit absorbs Demise's power to keep him sealed, and every step of that process is quietly taking something from her. By the time Skyward Sword reaches its ending, she's already less than she was at the beginning. You just didn't notice it happening. Here's the thing about Fi as a character. She's defined entirely by certainty, probability calculations, outcome predictions, data assessments. She gives you percentages. She tells you exactly what comes next. That's not a personality quirk. That's her whole identity. She is the part of the world that knows things, and her final words are an admission that she doesn't. She tells Link she cannot predict what lies ahead, that she is unable to foresee the future. For a being whose entire existence is built around foresight, that's not just a goodbye, it's a loss of self. The omniscient guide ending her arc with, "I don't know," is one of the most quietly devastating things Nintendo has ever written. Then she goes to sleep inside the blade, knowing she'll be there for thousands of years while Link lives out his entire life without her. No resolution to that asymmetry, no way around it for either of them. Just the slow, mutual understanding that this is what it is. She fades rather than falls. That's the tragedy. You don't feel it as a moment, you feel it as an absence. King Rome carries a different kind of grief entirely, because his comes attached to failure. King Rome is a ghost who already knows he failed. That's the whole tragedy. No mystery, no ambiguity to hide behind. He died trying to stop Calamity Ganon 100 years before Breath of the Wild begins, gave everything he had, and it wasn't enough. And then his spirit just stayed, stuck in place, watching a ruined kingdom from a fixed point, present enough to see the full damage, but completely powerless to do anything about it. That specific kind of torment is brutal when you sit with it. He's not resting, he's not at peace. He's parked there with a front row seat to his own legacy, rotting. Here's where it gets worse. His relationship with Zelda was already fractured before any of this happened. He pushed her relentlessly toward a sacred power she hadn't unlocked, prioritizing duty over the person in front of him. She spent years carrying that pressure without ever getting it right. Then he died, and somewhere in the 100 years after, she finally succeeded. He never saw it happen. That reconciliation arrived after he was already gone. When his ghost meets Link, he doesn't make a speech. He doesn't ask for sympathy. He just hands over everything he failed to protect, trusts a stranger with it, and disappears. Quietly. No conditions, no final requests. That quiet acceptance is somehow more devastating than any dramatic last words would have been. It's the resignation of a man who knows exactly what he cost everyone and has no argument left to make. If Rome is a portrait of a parent haunted by his own failures, Queen Sonia is what it looks like when that grief belongs to someone else entirely. Queen Sonia. Sonia's death is barely a scene. It happens in the distant past, during the imprisoning war, and the game moves past it almost immediately, but the aftermath of it is everywhere in Tears of the Kingdom, woven into every institution Hyrule was ever built on. Here's the thing, Rauru doesn't simply mourn and move forward. Her body is preserved in the sanctum, physically intact, present within the kingdom's most sacred space, completely unreachable, and then he builds a civilization around her absence. That detail sits with you once you actually think about it. Rauru constructs Hyrule's foundations, its legacy, its entire civilizational identity, while grieving beside a version of his wife he can see but never hold again. The placement is reverence, technically. That's the generous reading, but it reads less like a monument and more like someone who couldn't finish grieving and just started building instead. Sonia's time manipulation ability was one of the most powerful forces in the ancient kingdom. Her recall power made her extraordinary, and what she got in return was dying before the final confrontation even happened, preserved in the sanctum of a kingdom that would eventually forget her name while remembering her husband's. The game barely pauses to acknowledge any of this. It's there, in the background, and then it moves on, which might actually be the most accurate thing Tears of the Kingdom does, because that's exactly what prolonged grief looks like. It doesn't stop everything, it just quietly shapes everything around it instead. Ganondorf, sacrificing himself in a final battle against the Demon King, so that the threat he spent his entire reign trying to contain is locked away for good. He doesn't survive the fight, but it's not a clean, heroic end either. He pours everything he has left, his body, his stone, his existence, into containing something that should never have existed in the first place. Think about what that actually means. This is a man who already lost his wife, his kingdom's founding era, and any version of a normal life. He spent what remained of himself holding Ganondorf at bay from beneath Hyrule Castle, preserved only by sheer will and a disembodied arm. And when the moment finally came, he gave that last piece of himself too. The tragedy is compounded by Zelda's sacrifice running parallel to his. She swallows her own secret stone and becomes the Light Dragon, giving up her human existence entirely so that Rauru's arm, with the Master Sword embedded in it, can be preserved across time and reach Link when he needs it most. The entire chain of sacrifice only works because both of them were willing to give up everything. That's the cruelest part of the writing. Rauru doesn't get to see it work. He makes his choice and he's gone, trusting that it will matter, trusting a future he'll never witness. There is no glory version of this ending, just a king who spent his last breath cleaning up a catastrophe he saw coming from the beginning. Midna at least got to leave on her own terms. Midna doesn't die. That's what makes this so hard to write about. She walks away. She crosses back into the Twilight Realm at the end of Twilight Princess, and then she destroys the mirror of Twilight behind her, the only passage between worlds, gone, permanently, irreversibly, and the camera just watches it happen. There's no speech, no promise to return someday, no consolation, prize line where she says something that makes it slightly easier to process. Just Midna's helmet filling with tears as she walks away, and Link standing on the other side of something that no longer exists. Here's what makes it worse. She didn't have to destroy the mirror. She could have left it intact. The separation wasn't forced on her. She chose it deliberately, and the game never explains why clearly enough for you to make peace with it. You're just left there holding the absence. And the reason it lands as hard as it does is because of everything that came before. Midna starts the game contemptuous and manipulative, using Link as a tool. She's got no interest in you beyond your usefulness. That relationship shifts across the entire runtime, slowly, genuinely, until by the end it has become something the game doesn't need to name because you already know what it is. Every step of that development makes the final silence more unbearable. The more you cared, the worse the walk across that bridge. That's the whole mechanic of this ending. Absence. The mirror shatters and you feel exactly where it used to be. No other companion in Zelda history has an arc that earns this. Midna earned it, which is exactly the problem. And if Midna's departure hits this hard, wait until we get to the one that cost absolutely everything, including time itself. Princess Zelda. Every death on this list has a clean emotional logic to it. Sacrifice, separation, erasure, grief. You can point to the moment, feel the weight of it, and move on. Zelda's ending in Tears of the Kingdom refuses to do that for you. She gets swept 10,000 years into the past, stranded in Hyrule's founding era during the imprisoning war, watching a kingdom take shape around her that she will never actually live in. She spends the entire game there, unable to reach Link, unable to change what's coming, just present in a time that isn't hers. And then she makes the choice. She fuses with her secret stone and transforms into the Light Dragon, sacrificing her body, her identity, her humanity, and her era to create the one mechanism that can eventually pull her back to the present. The player watches her final conscious moments in real time. She's aware, she's frightened, she chooses anyway, and then her face disappears into scales, and the person who made that decision is gone. Here's the thing, she wins. The kingdom is saved. She comes back. The game frames this as a happy ending, complete with music and reunion, and Link catching her as she falls from the sky. It earns the resolution it's going for, but the resolution asks you to accept something quietly brutal, which is that the Zelda who returns is not entirely the Zelda who chose to go. The version of her that stood in the ancient world, alone and terrified, and certain anyway, does not come back intact. She comes back technically. That gap between the person who made the choice and the person who returns is where the real ending lives. The silence after the credits is the game's final question, and it never answers it. Not all stories owe you a clean reading. Sometimes the victory and the loss are the same moment, and the game just asks whether you were paying attention. If you enjoyed this video and want to see more, click the video on the screen now.